Okay, thank you. All right, the reason for this presentation was I was at a computer iOS meeting and somebody asked a question about iCloud and photos. And somebody else asked another question about iCloud Drive. And I realized that so many similar terms could be confusing. So I decided to research them to learn the difference between iCloud, iCloud Photo Library, iCloud Drive, and iCloud Photo Sharing. I'm not an expert, but I spend a lot of time on the iPad, so I hope you will learn something about iCloud and the iPad. So how many devices do you have? Many of us have several devices in addition to an iPad, phone, a Mac, a PC, a laptop, etc. So there's often a need to share data between them. Well, Apple's solution is called iCloud. So what is iCloud? It's essentially a cloud storage and computing service that provides a means to store data on remote servers. And these are some of the things that it allows us to do. We can share data between one iOS device and another iOS device, for example, between a phone and an iPad. We can share data with others. Usually we share photos. We can share data with other devices, a PC, a Mac, an Android phone, etc. Also, iCloud provides a means to manage lost or stolen Apple devices. And the iCloud is a place where you can back up an iOS device wirelessly. There are iCloud storage plans. So you may be wondering how much iCloud storage you need and what is the cost. This slide will address the cost. As we go through the presentation, we will talk about which things use iCloud storage and which things do not. So essentially, this is the current price for iCloud storage. If you only need 5 gigabytes of storage, it's free. Otherwise, you can see there's a monthly charge. These prices have changed greatly. It used to be much more expensive, and then Apple tried to become competitive with other people. I originally had an annual plan, and my latest annual plan was $10.99 for 20 gigabytes, and then they came out with 50 gigabytes for 99 cents, so I thought that was a no-brainer, and I switched to a monthly plan. So how much storage do you need? Well, what are you going to use it for? And we will talk about which functions use iCloud storage. So you may want to use iCloud for all your photos and videos. That will probably take a lot of storage. You may want to use it for documents, not so much. Backups for iPad and iPhone, iCloud Mail, or just to synchronize app settings between iOS devices. In order to get access to iCloud, you need an ID and a password. And there are 2 types of IDs, the Apple ID and the iCloud ID. So those of you who have an iOS device should be pretty familiar with the Apple ID. It's an email address and password. And it's used for purchases in the various stores, such as the iTunes Store, the App Store, and the iBook Store. And it's also used for text messages. The iOS text messages are called iMessages. And in addition, it's used for FaceTime. iCloud is also accessed by an ID and password. So the question might be, should we use the same ID and password to access purchases as we do to access iCloud? Well, the only downside is if somebody gets your Apple ID and password, they have access to both your purchases and data. However, on the upside, it's much easier to remember one password than two. I personally do that. I use a password manager app, but I use my Apple ID and iCloud ID so often that I want to be sure that I just remember it quickly without having to rely on the password app. Okay, these are the iPad iCloud settings. So in your settings, there's an iCloud item on the left, and actually it's showing my iCloud ID, and those are all the settings on the right side. So family sharing, iCloud Drive, and photos are kind of larger topics, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. And you can see some of the other settings. These are the things that can be stored on iCloud. Now I currently have a Mac. I used to have a PC, but actually the iPad converted me to Apple. So on the Mac, iCloud is part of the Mac system preferences. And you basically see the same settings that you have on your iPad. Now for the PC side, you would need to download iCloud for Windows. So once you download them, you again have access to all the settings. You can synchronize things and you can share your photos, etc. In addition, you could access iCloud from any web browser. You simply type in iCloud.com. It will ask you for your Apple ID and password, and you can access all these things from a web browser. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to discuss is mail. Now, when we talk about mail on the cloud, we're referring to iCloud mail only. You can set up a free iCloud email account, and it will synchronize this mail across all your devices. I have an iCloud mail account, but I don't really use it for much. I like to use Gmail, IMAP accounts, and synchronize my mail that way. One of the reasons is because iCloud Mail uses iCloud storage space. Okay, contacts. This is a very useful feature to synchronize. Contacts are synchronized across devices. So if you add, change, or delete a contact on your iPad, it will automatically be synchronized to your other devices, to your Mac, your PC, or on iCloud.com. So you can, if you're not at home, you can always access, and you don't have an iOS device with you, you can always access your contacts from iCloud.com via a web browser. To me, calendars is probably one of the most useful functions of iCloud. The same as contacts, if you add, change, or delete a calendar event on your iPad, it will automatically be synchronized to your other devices, and it will be on iCloud.com as well. Now, you see I have that little doctor's office example. Most of you know that when you go to a doctor's office and you finish your appointment, you go up to the desk, the first thing they want to ask you is to set up your next appointment. And I usually don't have my iPad with me, but I always have my phone with me. So I go into my calendar on my phone and I set up the appointment. And I know that when I come home, that appointment will be on my Mac and on my iPad as well. Now, another thing that gets synchronized is your bookmarks of your Safari app. So if you set up bookmarks on one device, they will be synchronized to another. Now, in the Safari app on the iPad, there's a little icon that you can see on the screen that looks like two squares into one another. And that icon is for you to view the open tabs. So it will give you a little picture of your open tabs and, excuse me, a thumbnail of them. But it also will show you tabs that are open on other devices. And this is what it looks like. Here is a screenshot on my iPad, and I was viewing the open tabs, and I scrolled down to the bottom of the screen, and you can see that I can see what tabs I had open on my Mac and what tabs I had open on my iPhone. So that's another useful feature. And the reason I have more on my iPhone than my iMac is I tend to use Chrome rather than Safari. Okay, backup. iCloud allows you to create a backup of your iOS device. The best feature of this backup is that it can be set up to run automatically. So essentially, as soon as your iPad is connected to electricity to charge it, it will create a backup of your iPad automatically. However, the one downside is that it does use iCloud storage space. So this could require you to purchase additional storage space. But I have this set up because I like to make sure that I have a backup without thinking about it. So automatically to me is a good thing. What does the iCloud backup include? Not everything, but a lot of things. It includes your purchase history. So you always have access to things that you've purchased, including apps, music, movies, TV shows, books, etc. It doesn't include the actual content, but your content would be downloaded from the stores when you do a restore. Your photos and videos are also backed up unless you're using iCloud Photo Library, which we'll talk about later, because that already stores your photos in the cloud. In addition, your iCloud backup stores your device settings, your home screen and app organization, text messages, app data, etc. Now, if you run low on storage, you can determine which apps you want your backup to backup data for. Some of them may be important to you and others are not. And essentially, to get to the screen that I'm showing here, you go to your settings, your iCloud settings, your storage, your manage storage, and then you pick your device. And once you pick your device, under backup options, you get a list of all your apps, and you could either toggle backup on or off for them. So this is a way to minimize the size of your backup. Now, I said that iCloud backup does not back up everything. There are some things that it does not include. So if you purchase music or videos, if you have, music or videos on your iPad that you have not purchased through iTunes, they will not be backed up with iCloud backup. Any photos that are on your device not stored in the camera roll will not be backed up. If you're talking about your phone, your call history is not backed up. So if these things are important, then you should make sure you have an iTunes backup in addition to an iCloud backup. And now let's look at the iCloud backup versus the iTunes backup. So essentially, the iCloud backup uses iCloud storage, which could cost you money because a lot of people have more than 5 gigabytes of data. On the plus side, it is initiated automatically. On the minus side, the restore may be slower when you need to restore it, but the restore can be done wherever Wi-Fi is available. As far as iTunes are concerned, that uses only your computer storage, which presumably you have a lot more of. But that has to be initiated manually. The restore may be faster, but you need access to a computer. So what do I mean needs access to a computer? Well, it turns out when I recently got a new phone, we had to go to the AT&T store to have them change the phone numbers around. My old phone was still under contract, but my husband's wasn't. And I always get the new phone. So after they changed the numbers around, right in the store, without being connected to a computer, they asked me, do I have an iCloud backup? I said yes, and they immediately started a restore on my iPhone from iCloud. So I was kind of up and running immediately. And then if I had to add anything, I could always go to an iTunes backup. What my preference is I back up to iCloud daily whenever I charge my iPad, which for the way I use it is usually daily. And I do an iTunes backup now and then. I just connect my iPad to my computer, do an iTunes backup, and it's especially important if you know you're going to be purchasing a new device. Find My iPad. Well, most of you are probably familiar with that, or Find My iPhone, pretty much the same thing. This is an app that will locate your Apple devices. When a device is lost, you go to a browser and log in to iCloud.com, and you will find the Find My iPhone app. Now, if you just misplaced your phone or your iPad in your house, you can locate your device and have it play a sound, so hopefully you'll find it quickly. But if your iPad is really lost, or hopefully not, or possibly stolen, you have the option to lock your screen, which would require your passcode to use it. You also can have it display a message saying, please call your home phone if you find this. You can get notified. It will email you when lost mode is activated. And as we mentioned before, you go to a map and you can locate your device and pinpoint the exact location of it. There is also what's called an activation lock on the iPad that requires an Apple ID and password. So if you have sensitive data, and you're worried about getting your iPad back, you can restore your iPad to factory settings, which will make it unusable to others as long as you keep the activation locked. It will require an Apple ID to reactivate. Now, one of the ways we share data is called family sharing. And I forget, I think this was iOS 8 when this was introduced. So what can you do with this? You can share things that you purchase on your iPad. You can share photos. Family sharing will create a family album. You can share your calendar. It will create a family calendar, and the Find My iPhone app will also locate other members of your family group's iOS devices. And in addition, as it says at the top, one of the main reasons for family sharing is to share purchases. Anything you purchase in the iTunes store, the App Store, and the bookstore will be shared with other members of your family group. You can include up to 6 people in the group, and you set up one person as the family organizer. Okay, the organizer is the person who agrees to pay for purchases and invites others to join. So family members can now download books, apps, etc. of other family members from the iPad stores. Now, there is the ability, if for some reason you need to keep some purchases private, and I doubt if this applies to any of you, that's something that can be set up, but it requires using iTunes on a Mac or a PC. So when you're on your iPad to view the family purchases, and this is a screenshot, I believe, of the App Store. So you go to the store and you go to the Purchase tab on the bottom. And at the top of the screen, you'll see something that says My Purchases, and that shows the members of the family. And you click on the person whose purchases you want to access. It's pretty much as simple as that. And then you download the ones that you want. And it works the same way for the iBook store and also for the iTunes store. Now, there is a feature in family sharing called Ask to Buy, which is useful if you have children as part of the group who you want to share things with. Now, Ask to Buy can be turned on manually. So when a child initiates a purchase, the organizer gets a notification and must approve the purchase before it can complete. And this little graphic shows on the left side what the child would see. Your request was sent and is waiting approval. And the right side shows what you would see as the organizer. So-and-so wants to buy this, and you need to give permission for them to buy it. Now, if you use family sharing, the organizer also has the ability to set up an Apple ID for a child that's under the age of 13. And that's accessed by Settings, iCloud, Family Sharing, create an Apple ID for a child. And when you create an Apple ID for a child, Ask to Buy is automatically turned on. So you know they cannot purchase anything without your approval. Might be nice for some adults too. Okay. Now let's go into photos. That's probably one of the largest areas for sharing data between different devices. So here are the iCloud photo settings. And essentially, you can turn on or off the iCloud photo library, My Photostream, and iCloud photo sharing. So we will talk about these 3 things. The first one I'm going to talk about is iCloud photo sharing. And iCloud photo sharing, if you have family sharing turned on also, there is a family album created. So this is a screenshot of the Photos app. And the bottom menu, you would want to select the shared item. So this would show all the albums that you are sharing with iCloud photo sharing. You can share albums with family members or with anybody else. The album that's shared with family members is called Family. The other ones are other albums that I've created. And we'll go into how to do that now. So if you have family sharing set up, essentially you go into your Photos app and you select the photos you want to share. And then you touch iCloud photo sharing from the share button. Everybody knows the little box with an arrow pointing up is the share button. Once you select iCloud photo sharing, you essentially get the same screen we looked at before. Let's see if I can go back. And this is the screen, and you can see that your family album is now showing. So once you select the photos to share, you touch share, you select iCloud photo sharing, and then select the family album, and those photos will be added to the family album that all your family members can share. Now you can also share photos with others using iCloud photo sharing. And essentially the way that works is you create a new shared album and you add photos to it. You invite others by email, and this iCloud shared album does not use iCloud storage. You're allowed to have a maximum of 5,000 photos. You can give others the ability to add or delete photos to the album. So we'll walk through this process. And it's pretty similar to the other one. When you touch the shared button on the bottom menu of the Photos app, it shows you your iCloud photo sharing albums. And in addition, there is a plus sign where you can create a new shared album, or if you for some reason don't see the plus sign down at the bottom, you can touch new shared album. So this will create an album, and you just give it a name and go to the next screen. And then you want to choose people to share with. And this essentially uses your contacts. It works pretty much like an email. You click in the to box, it will bring up your contacts, and you choose those that you want to share the photos with, and it will send an email invitation to those people. So now, when you're finished, you can you touch the create item and create the album. So now the album will be in your iCloud photo sharing albums. So you add photos to it pretty much the same way you do others. You go ahead, you open the shared album, and you select the photos that you want to add, and it will bring up your photos and put a check mark next to the ones that you want to share, and they will be part of this new shared album. Then you would add people to share the album with, if you haven't already invited anybody. So when you're looking at the album, at the top of the screen, there's an option called People. And when you open up that option, you can invite additional people if you haven't added any. And it gives you some options. You can turn on or off the options to allow the people you invite to add photos. And also, I didn't mention that iCloud photo sharing also allows you to share videos. You can put this up on a public website, although I probably wouldn't recommend that. And you can choose to get a notification when somebody else has added a photo or liked a photo, etc. And essentially, to add to an album previously created is pretty much the same way. In order to see your shared albums, you always must touch the shared button at the bottom of the Photos app. That'll bring up all your shared photos. Open the album and touch the plus sign to add photos. Select the photos and post them to the album. So that's pretty much iCloud photo sharing. Now, how do you sync photos between devices using iCloud? So prior to iOS 8, might even be 7, I could be wrong on this, there was Photostream. And prior to iOS 8, the only option you had was Photostream. After iOS 8, you can also elect to synchronize photos using the iCloud photo library, but Photostream is still available. Now, Photostream, essentially, you would take a photo on one device, for example, on your iPhone. Now, when your iPad is on and connected to Wi-Fi, any of the photos that you've taken on your iPhone would automatically be moved over to your iPad, and they would be part of an album called My Photostream. Now, you can have a maximum of 1,000 photos. If you add the 1,001st photo, the oldest photo would be deleted. You can use Photostream from various devices. You can use it on a PC or a Mac as well. However, the photos are not visible on iCloud.com. And another downside is it does not upload and sync videos. The reason for this is this does not use your iCloud storage allotment. So you can have 1,000 photos in your Photostream without using up any of your iCloud storage. One thing that you should note, if you choose to if you have not turned on Photostream and you have photos on your iPhone, when you turn Photostream on, they would not be synced. Only the ones you create after you turn Photostream on your iPad on your devices, both devices, will be synced. Now, iCloud Photo Library, I guess the biggest downside, it uses iCloud storage space, and we'll do the trade-off in a moment. However, there is no limit on the number of photos that you can have as long as you have enough iCloud storage space. Photos are uploaded automatically to all devices when your device is connected to the internet. And it also uploads and syncs videos, and it stores full resolution photos. Photostream is not full resolution. If you store a full resolution photo on your computer, you can also have the option of saying, well, don't store the full resolution on your iOS device because iOS devices are limited as to storage. So let's look at the trade-offs between both of these. So this is iCloud Photo Library or Photostream. So with iCloud Photo Library, there's no limit on the number of photos, full resolution. You can have compressed versions on devices, synchronized videos. So all these are great pluses. However, it uses iCloud storage. And if you take a lot of photos, that could be significant and cost you money. Photostream allows you to have a maximum of 1,000 photos. It stores web-optimized photos, but it does not sync videos. However, It does not use iCloud storage. My preference is Photostream. I have other ways of saving photos, and generally I will save photos that are in Photostream to either my camera roll or onto my computer if I want to make sure to keep them. Okay. The last thing I'm going to talk about, or next to the last thing, is the iCloud Drive. iCloud Drive is a place to store files that can be accessed from all devices. And it's essentially Apple's answer to Dropbox in a way. And you can save and access files at iCloud.com. You can access and save them from a Mac using the Mac's Finder application. And on a PC, you can save and access files using Windows Explorer. Okay, so here is a picture. I happen to have a Mac, but I also essentially have my old Windows PC on my Mac in an application called Parallels. So it's a full version of Windows on that I can access on my Mac. On the Mac side, the top photo is the Finder app, and it shows the different folders that are created and files that are created, and it's called iCloud Drive on the left side. And on a PC, you can set up iCloud Drive, and it gets set up right into your Explorer, Windows Explorer window, and you can see iCloud Drive on the left and essentially the same files on the right. Now, iCloud Drive uses iCloud storage space. However, most of the time you will use this for documents which don't take up as much space as photos do. On the iPad or the iPhone, it requires you have at least iOS 8 or above. The Mac requires Mavericks or above. And the PC requires Windows 7 or above. Now, iCloud Drive is also available on the iPad. It used to be only available for you to access these documents from the apps that support it. For example, Pages, Number, and Keynote. They had some third-party apps that were also available to access iCloud Drive. But with iOS 9, you now have an iCloud Drive app available. It is not turned on by default. You need to go to Settings, iCloud, iCloud Drive, and Show on the home screen to have that app show up. And this is a screenshot of the iCloud Drive app. And you can see that it has a lot of the same folders that we saw before, and there are a few of them that may be just related to some apps that I only have on my iPad. Also new with iOS 9, if you create an email on your iPad, you can attach a file that's stored on iCloud Drive to your email from the Mail app. In addition, some iPad apps use iCloud to synchronize data. So if you go to iCloud and you select iCloud Drive, it will show you the apps that will synchronize different settings. And you can turn that feature on or off. And I was not even aware of iCloud Drive when it first started. I probably had some things turned on by default. And one of the apps that I like, a word game app called Bonza, and it's essentially an app that allows you to play word games, and you kind of play them in order and you keep your place. Well, I usually play this on my iPad. And one day I was at a doctor's office waiting room and I started to play Bonza on my iPhone. And I saw that my iPhone knew exactly what I was up to on my iPad. And I was wondering how that happened. Well, I found out it's because of iCloud Drive. The settings are stored there, so it is synchronized. And you could, as I said, turn on any apps on or off that you need to synchronize on iCloud Drive. So other solutions for sharing data, well, there's always Dropbox, 2 gigabytes free space for referring friends, other specials. If you use the Dropbox app on your iPad, you can choose to automatically upload all your photos from the camera roll to Dropbox. But don't do that unless you have enough Dropbox storage. A lot of people like Google Photos. That's kind of the answer to iCloud Photo Library, and because it's Google, it's free. Google Photos gives you unlimited free storage for photos that are under 16 megabytes and videos under 1080p. And I think that probably will satisfy most people. A lot of people love Google Photos. And there are other things such as Google Drive, Flickr, Microsoft OneDrive, and third-party apps for syncing as well. So the advantages of iCloud to me is that there's a more seamless method of syncing. Photos, documents, etc. are all synced automatically. Wireless backups are automatically done. And the only reason you might choose to spend money for the iCloud Photo Library versus Google Photos is if you're very security conscious. Some people are much happier with Apple security versus Google security. And I think that is it. So are there any questions?